All right, buying Gold Coast deep dive series, the EPs where we really unpack a key issue on the Gold Coast right now, hot topics, and we get some professionals in, and we basically just chew the fat. And I'm here with the man himself, Ian Perkins, lead buyers agent at the Srama Group. Perko, mate, thanks for jumping in.
Always pleasure to come and see the king.
Always. Oh, mate, on his throne sitting there, mate. This is a good topic. I'm really keen to unpack something that I think is going to be huge for buyers. We're calling this one, I guess, the biggest opportunity to unlock in 2025 for Gold Coast buyers. So we're going to go over a few key stats. We had REA. We got some great relationships in the industry. REA had some amazing stats, and it really highlighted some stuff for Perko and myself just to kind of give some value back to the buyers on some key things. And mate, I think the biggest one more than ever is the stat that really showed me was the buyers are actually slowing down, which is interesting. So they gave us key stats. So the average time it took for a buyer in 2022 was 23 weeks. 2023, it actually increased to 34 weeks. In 2024, the average buyer took 44 weeks on average to find a property.
Absolutely.
Crazy, yeah.
And I think we unfortunately get to see some of these people at week 30. And the other stat is Gold Coast Bulletin recently put out, what they were seeing for 2025 in the market, and they were quoting that the market would increase 10 to 13% again in 2025, and that's on the back of 11 and 12% increases over the last 2 years. So if you think about it just in a really simple economic term, every month a buyer is out of the market, it's costing them 1% more to buy.
Wow,
so if they're
really
in the
good
market
point.
for 44 weeks, I'm not very good at maths, but that's probably nearly 10 months.
True.
10 months, that delay is costing them 10%. So then the other great stat we got from the REA meeting the other day, which was magnificent, was more and more people are now using buyer's agents on the journey for guidance and support, let alone everything else that they do. But it's when we get access to that buyer and where they feel comfortable, like we've got to get their trust first up before they engage us and they see the value at the end. But the earlier probably we're seeing these people, the better, because we can save them more money at the other end as well too, because of our systems and what we do and how we do it. But yeah, I just think it's actually a total. You'd think in today's market the buyers would be acting quicker to get into the market because of the increase.
I agree.
But those stats are telling us they're not. So why?
Yeah, and that's a big one. I put it down to Perko. It was really good. Like me and Perko, we love diving deep on Gold Coast property and the topics. And the biggest ones, I don't know, and it's REA said it too, like more than ever, buyers are feeling stress, overwhelm, and anxiety.
Correct.
Stress, overwhelm, anxiety. So that's contemplating into the 44-week delay that people are feeling. But probably the biggest one I find is that combined, we remember the term FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm sensing now, Perko, the fear of better option, FOBO, fear of better option. People are nearly in a case where we're going to probably see more sellers come onto the market. Potentially, we had this increase in interest rates. Sellers come on. More than ever, buyers are nearly like fear of better option. It is maybe I've rushed into it. Maybe there could be something better. This ticks all the boxes, but what if kind of thing? And what you just said there, Perko, is nearly a case of that extra week. If we're going on the average of 44 weeks, you're dipping into your pocket a lot more from the purchase price side in a market like the Gold Coast.
Absolutely. And while they're waiting, there's because we get them early access. If they wait that week and it goes to market, then they're in a competitive environment. So as long as we've done our research correctly, I think going back to what you said, I actually think the moment a client signs with us and engages us to take their brief on board, they actually feel not just relief, but they throw the stress and the anxiety back to us. Because we take it on with empathy and passion. So we actually carry that burden for them while they're then sitting, not in their lounge rooms doing nothing because they're very engaged in the process. But we actually assume that stress and anxiety because we're all high performers. And then so they're happy to pass that to us and we take it on board. But I've seen twice, one we bought for and one we didn't, in my book of clients. I've had to actually say to clients, let's go back to what we first spoke about. Let's see the boxes these ticks. And then from there, let's really just think about the decision to go and look at something else. because you've engaged me, you've asked me for my professional opinion, I've shown you a lot of property. This compares beautifully to all those properties, and one was an investment. It ticks all of these boxes. One property we paid $845 for a beautiful 4-bedroom townhouse, $845 for a way less standard, just sold for $830 in a busier area, and he's getting $950 a week rent, and it was an investment. So it really ticked all the boxes. Clean, tidy, low body corp. It ticked all of the boxes. So I actually had to take him to the edge of the bridge and ask him to jump with me, and he did. And we secured the property. Whereas another client decided, no, let's keep looking. Now, we saw that property, and I believed I could buy it sort of circa $950. It's since sold for $1,025,000.
There you go. Yeah.
So there's your answer. There's your answer. So, leads always want to be led, and that's we have to take them. But there are times where we have to sort of say, look, this is where the market is, and that's why you've come to us. And we do the research. There's no emotion involved. Do we want to pass this up? And we have to ask those questions.
And it's going to add some value to the Gold Coast buyer listener right now too. Of hopefully that's giving you some questions, whether you get professional help or not. Just asking yourself those questions in the heats of the moments when you are looking, because again, the stats don't lie. If the average buyer is taking 44 weeks because of FOBO, fear of better option, and every single week we got the stats that the Gold Coast market is increasing. If it's ticking your boxes, you just got to jump in the helicopter quickly and go back to, like you said, Perko, what was the original criteria? Don't let it is, anyone who says it's not emotional, there's always going to be some sort of emotion, but you can't let emotion procrastinate and delay your goals at the end of the day. So that's it. That's just a huge one. And then on that, with the rise of getting help. So there was another stat with the rise of like buyer's agents too. So maybe there is someone listening who's listening to Perko speak, and it's kind of like, I'm that person. I'm the one who kind of, I know what I want, but I just can't make that decision. And I'm sensing now every week I'm delaying is actually costing me more. So maybe I will get professional help. The rise of buyer's agents, especially in the last 3 years, has spiked. One thing I think as a big unlock for this episode that we can add value to is there's buyer's agents and there's buyer's agents. And we really want to add value to people who might be wanting professional help to speed this process up, to make good decisions for that too and do their due diligence. And I know you're big on that one, being experienced in the industry. What do you think, like buyer's agent wise, if someone wants to get some help, are some key things for the listener to not only understand, but maybe ask himself or ask a buyer's agent?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think firstly, and like everything, there's always a cost to what we do. And I think,
True, yeah,
I think that any prospective person, interviewing a buyer's agent, that they have to look at the experience of that person. They have to, because ultimately we take on probably one of the biggest decisions of their life. We take their money like it's our own, and they ask us to protect that money and buy the best we can buy for them. Whether that purchase is off market, on market, where in the buying cycle it might be, it's how can we best buy the right property for the right price. Okay, so to do that, we're assuming the responsibility of that purchase, and we do. We assume it, and we do it. We do it with a lot of responsibility. There are a lot of buyers agents in the market now. There are more and more of them. So as that need for guidance and support is growing, there's more of them. But I'd be asking about the experience of that buyer's agent. How many properties have they bought? Because people can do a course now and go and get their license and come out and call themselves a buyer's agent, but they haven't done the deals. They haven't been in the heat of a negotiation. They haven't been able to leverage their relationship in the marketplace with either the selling agent, the selling property manager. It's about that market knowledge, the experience, the professionalism, and to get that contract that we hope to be a successful one to the top of a pile if it's a competitive state, or to understand where value is to make sure that our first offer is a good enough offer for the sellers to consider it, and then where we find middle ground and get the deal done before the competition comes in. And we do that well. Like if 65% of the property we buy is off market, we're still buying 35% on market. But in a lot of cases, it's because there might be an overvalue or the seller seeing a higher price, and we go, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep showing you more properties. And if that seller expectation comes down, we can still strike. So to me, it's about ensuring that no matter, it's not, in my mind, it's not about the cost. If one person costs X and the other one costs a little bit more at Y, well, who's going to get me the best result? Because that difference is not even going to be remembered in 20 years' time when they go to sell the property and it's a big part of their portfolio, or 5 years' time or whatever it might be, whatever their expectation or the reason for the purchase is. That little bit extra to get the most, in my mind, should not be discounted.
Yeah, it's nearly a case of, it's kind of like a lot of things in life. You get what you pay. Like value is what you pay. Price is what you pay. Value is what you receive. And
how many people go and look for a Mazda and buy a Mercedes? Like seriously,
Yeah.
they just look for the extra benefits. And I always think that if something's cheaper, then they've got to strip. If they want to offer the service level and get the result, they've got to strip stuff out, or they're going to take on a lot more people to try and get to their volume they require, and you won't get the attention. So where we take on fewer clients and one per brief at any point in time, so our clients get access to everything we find, I just find that as being the best value we can offer.
100%. And it's a big one too, Perko, on the case of, like you mentioned the experience side. I think too, some key questions you could ask a buyer's agent if you are wanting professional help is also process too. Like you use the analogy, like, there's a Mazda and a Mercedes, right? They're doing the same thing. Like they are getting you from A to B, right? But the experience to actually get to the destination is far different. And I think knowing what's inside of that experience, I think is important. You mentioned like asking questions. I think maybe like even process and due diligence. I know that's a big one in your business model, like the DD side. We're in a market today where people they're just buying the next property rather than the right property.
Correct.
What do you think some key things for people to understand with like due diligence and process when it comes to buying Gold Coast property?
Well, look, the reports we give regarding all the council overlays on any property, especially, is just a standard for us, where I think a lot of people don't look at it. But, to understand where easements are on the Gold Coast, environmental overlays, noise overlays, steep bank overlays, knowing where the power and water run into it. Is it in the flood zone? If they want to put a pool in the yard,
True.
Is there an easement? Is it going to stop them? Like, we really, with our due diligence process, and then if you go to a unit where you've got the financial disclosure statement, and then we get the annual general minutes of the meeting, so we can try and really read what that community is like, because ultimately our client will be investing into a community. We want it to be a happy community, not something where there are building issues or the sinking fund may reduce, or where we've got to preempt it, because ultimately we want that client that we sign on and buy for just to have this peaceful environment in whatever property from a property perspective, whatever they purchase from us. We don't want the phone call to say, hey, you didn't tell me about this, or the air conditioning's not working. So we've got our pre-settlement work, which is extensive. What we put into a contract to ensure they're in working order. Like there are all these little bits that a lot of people don't know or understand, which we do like a reflex to ensure that our clients are protected. But if our clients are trying to do it themselves, then they just end up copying the cost. So all of these things just become a big part of why we're valuable. And I suppose I say to people all the time, look, when I'm first meeting with you, it's about gaining your trust, and you will see the value at the end. I have no doubt, but that's hard to to fathom. But given it is such an important purchase, or such an important investment in their life and for their family, I think we're a no-brainer as well.
A big one too, Perko. Like I love the way you approach the industry with, you mentioned like energy, enthusiasm. I think that's super key. One thing I'm always really big on too is when you're buying property, you're dealing with a lot of selling agents. Like they're effectively the representative of probably your dream property or dream investment property. One thing I always say is you should be also taking into account the, I guess, authenticity and energy and emotional stability of the buyer's agent. I think that's one a lot of people forget too, because if your buyer's agent is not represented well in the marketplace, they couldn't be nearly not getting you through doors versus getting you through doors.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with
100%.
that? Yeah, I know that you're big on that one.
Energy is, no one sees me between 10 at night and 10 at night and 4 in the morning where I just collapse, because you expand so much energy talking to people all day. And I think the other side, it's a bit of a luxury for our clients, but they get access to a lot more property, but that property doesn't fall off trees.
That's true.
We're pounding phones, we're leveraging our relationships, so we're talking to people, we're getting into the market to find out what else might be coming. that takes energy as well too, but it also takes a level of respect from the market back to you to give you access to it as well too. So I think that's really important as well too. So I think our brand as the Srama Group in the marketplace. I mean, we met together. We basically started together, and I think between the two of us, I'd say we do buy more property together than any other buyers agents on the Gold Coast. But there's two things that we're very similar about. We love the industry. We're passionate about getting our clients the best result, but we're in the market every day, every day, not just 9 to 5 or whatever. Our list of inspections for tomorrow, we've got meetings on Sunday. It's our life, because our clients' future depends on our results, and we don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to be investing in. That's what you need to be asking. Your clients need to be asking you, what are you going to give to me so I get the best result?
Yeah, it's a really good point, and that even adds some value there to anyone listening that wants to go on the, again, if we go back to the topic of this episode, is the biggest unlock of opportunity is being able to buy sooner rather than your 44-week average time,
100%.
right? And if you are someone who wants to achieve that, maybe a buyer's agent's not for you and you want to do it yourself, I heard it there from Perko and obviously myself too, the importance of relationships, it sounds like getting, like you said, these property opportunities don't just fall in the lap. They're actually kind of harvested is probably why. They're seeds planted,
Absolutely.
it's watered, then it's harvested. So you got to be willing to put the time and effort in. I think another one is spending the time understanding due diligence. I think that was a huge one. For anyone who wants to do it themselves, make sure you got your full due diligence process set up before you actually start, I think is a big one. And then the last one, Perko, I really want to dive into you because I know you love this one too, and so do I, and so does our whole team. Negotiation. It's a topic that most general buyers, are not afraid of. They're just not as compelling with it because the average buyer might have bought 1 or 2 properties in their lifespan, right? Some astute people maybe 10 to 20, but when you're a buyer's agent, you're obviously buying upwards of 100 plus in a year, right? Negotiation. Any tips there for maybe someone who wants to do it themselves, or where you see a lot of buyers go wrong that delays their time to that 44-week average?
Yeah. Look, I think probably the biggest one is a negotiation. At the end of the day, is about getting a result for both parties.
Definitely, yeah.
That's really, really important. So if you just approach a negotiation where I've just got to win at all costs, I'm just not going to buy it unless I can get it for this, is just really at the end of the day,
it's a poor strategy.
It's just a poor strategy.
Yeah.
Whether it's at auction, whether it's we all want to be, as per our last podcast, we want to get to the deal room where we can negotiate a result for our client. But ultimately, in a negotiation, we've got to go armed with information to say this is why this is a great offer and your client should really consider it, and then try and find common ground where we can meet and all parties are happy. Now, for that to happen, we also have to provide that same information to our client to ensure that they're also realistic. Because they've come to us at a lot of times and they haven't been able to negotiate. They get scared. They don't know what offer to put in. We provide that service where we do the research to know where we should be, and then part of that is probably really, so from a client perspective, and even if I'm negotiating myself, I want to find, and even for something personal with my wife, I want to find where the walkaway price is.
Yeah.
I want to know what I'm going to pay, and I want to know what I'd like to pay or what I think I'm going to pay. So in between those 3 prices, there's a deal to be done. If we're getting the information through our market knowledge that's not going to get the deal done, I prefer not to take my client into that negotiation, because I want to take my client, they can miss out on their own. And I'm not saying we don't miss out, but I want to get my client into a position where we should be able to create a win-win, and they secure their home and their dream, and we fulfill that, but we also know we've paid the right price. Okay, so it's really about creating a situation where it's a win-win, but we know we're still right.
I love that. Yeah,
That's what I think.
yeah, it's a really good point. And one key takeaway there too, a lot of it is just creating the opportunity to have a seat at the table as well, I think is a
Correct.
huge one. Like the amount of deals that have come together from just knowing how to get a seat at the table in a competitive
Absolutely.
environment is huge. Yeah, you don't win them all, but you did have a seat at the table.
Yeah, and I know you do this, and I do as well. Just look, let's put something on the table so we're in the game, because you never know when they'll come back. And in today's market where terms can be as strong as price, if our terms are good, there's less pressure on the price, because if we again understand or get the ability to understand what the others, not by price, but what the others' terms might be, there's a subject to sale or subject to 14-day finance or subject to 21-day finance or 14-day building and pest. We know we can tweak ours because of our relationships in the market. We know we can get a building and pest done in 4 days if need be. Fully reported, done properly, great inspector, and that extra 10 days on the contract, that could be our advantage.
Huge, yeah.
That could be our advantage. So just speeding up the process to unconditional to allow the seller to go and buy the property they're looking at or to get out of a subject to sale contract at the other end can be a huge leverage. So it's about understanding that in your negotiation, so you're not just dependent on price.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
If you're just going in there and you're dependent on price, but your terms are no good, you're just going to be overpaying.
Yeah.
If you've got bad terms. So, that's also a part about getting the right price in place. So just, again, asking the questions from the moment we find a property, asking the right questions, to the moment we negotiate, which might be at auction, 6 weeks later, in a laundry, but we're remembering what we spoke about 6 weeks ago. We can use that information, which no one else in the room's got, to try and get them off the reserve and back towards where we are. Because the only reason we've gone to that auction is because we believe the property was overpriced, or they had to go to auction from a transparency perspective. It might be a divorce, a death. They need to get the price in the marketplace for the contract to be accepted by the other party. So we can't stop that. We're not, if we do, we're paying way too much. So to go to there, having all that information through the process still allows us to pay the right price and be comfortable with it.
Yeah. Absolute gold there, Perko. And I think that's really going to sprinkle a lot of value to buyers out there. Just on the negotiation in general, it is a bit of I like the word creative process. It's a creative process from the get-go. So if you are someone who is uncomfortable, hopefully that gave some value if you're doing it alone. But if you're not comfortable, just know there's a lot more than just putting a number in and hoping and wishing.
The thing we say all the time, it's an art of a negotiation.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an art. You've got to paint it. You've got to paint a picture to both sides, and then from there you've got to get them together.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's a masterpiece at the end and you win. That's really what it's about, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And mate, just to finish on too, and because it's been a bit of a theme, is obviously people wanting to speed up that process, delay the 44-week average time, and hopefully trim that down, because the longer they're in the market, the more they're effectively going to pay. I think a big one to finish on too is like a buyer's agent or a professional helping you speed that process up isn't for everyone as well. And I really believe, like I always use an analogy, right? And I've got a bit of an acronym that I love. It's a buyer's agent is for the act buyer, someone who can act. And I say ACT. Someone who is approved with finance or a cash buyer, number one. C is for they're clear on their criteria. They've kind of narrowed it to a point where they kind of know an area or a pocket that they're ideal on. Being super broad can waste time for you as a buyer. And then the T is for they're in a transitional mindset. They're actually mentally ready to either move or buy this investment property, because time and time again, we see people who say that they feel they're ready, but they actually haven't thought around being mentally ready. Because you could have the best deal that a buyer's agent might throw to you and it's ticked every box, like you said at the start. From an investment point of view, from an owner point of view, from everything, if you're not transitionally ready to make the move, you're wasting your own time and the professional's time as well, right? So ACT, approved, clear on criteria, transitional mindset. If you're not that, get yourself to a stage where you can get that. And I think engaging a buyer's agent can definitely speed up that 44-week process.
Yeah. And then there's one other, and I know I'm old, so, and this is where there's also another market which I do a lot of work in this space. I'm doing it with 3 clients at the moment, who in the transitionary phase, 2 clients have their houses on the market. Okay, one's going to auction next weekend, the other one's coming to market in March. But we've already engaged because I want to use that time. They've quite specific briefs to show them property, to show them market value, where the values are, so that they can not only, know what they're going to pay, but they can also manage their sale. So that they can manage the gap. So they might, one of mine might have aspirations to get 2.4 for their house, okay, and they've got a budget of 2, okay, but I know they need my help, So my empathy cuts in and I like the people, okay, and I know I can help them. So if they get 2.2, my budget goes back to 1.8. So I'm now showing them properties between 1.8 or 1.6 and 2.2 now, because when they go under contract, we've got 60 or 90 days, depending on what goes on that contract, to find them a property, to buy at the right price in low stock environment. So
definitely.
I actually use that month of them selling to help me so I can transact quickly when they're ready. Now, that does cost me a bit of time, but I just know that they won't get the result and they'll end up having to move somewhere else. And so it's great with downsizers, great with people who've just bought something subject to sale, all that, something like
definitely.
that. You know, I can really get in and help them achieve their buy and sell. So I find that as another market as well, but I agree with you. And if you look at your ACT acronym, that particular client, and we work with those people probably 80% of the time, or I do 80% of the time, we're usually buying, as long as we know they're brief and they're focused, we're usually buying for those people in 6 to 12 weeks.
Exactly.
12 a long time. So that's 3 months. You know, so 12 weeks, that's, you know, like that. When you look at that, that's a 3% increase against a 13% increase or whatever. So again, too, when you're looking at fee structure and really breaking it down to what you're paying a buyer's agent to do it for you, if they've got the experience and the market leverage to get it done quickly, as long as it's the right property, then it's nearly a free service. It's nearly a free service because the longer they stay in the market, it's just costing them money.
Yeah, mate, it's a great way to finish. I just think the overarching message of this chat is the biggest unlock, I think, in 2025 for Gold Coast buyers is essentially getting, I guess, like getting in the market before getting priced out of the market.
Correct.
So it's a really, really good transition. So hopefully that's added some value. Just to highlight, I guess, why that average time of 44 weeks is increasing. Hopefully we gave some value there to the buyers. And if you are someone who is in the market right now and you feel you're creeping up to the 30-week mark, 40-week mark, just know every week that you're staying out of the market, it's potentially costing you dollars and cents that you could be keeping in your back pocket. But mate, that's what the deep dive's all around. That one got me juiced up. I love diving deep with your Perko. Mate, thanks for your insights as always. Ian Perkins, check him out online. He's got some, mate, pumping on the content too at the moment. Mate, he's
you got to be in it, don't you? Hey, you got to be in it. It's not in my comfort zone, mate, but you got to keep up with your young fellas.
The mug is out there. I'd see it all the time.
It's not a good mug. I tell you.
Mate, absolutely unreal advice, and hopefully that added some value. If there is a topic you want covered, let us know. Buying Gold Coast. Let's get amongst it, Perko.
Cool, mate. Thanks.